Hi guys, welcome. And who dat? I'm Joe, and today I'm doing a video that's going to be talking about some of my favorite players in the upcoming 2024 NFL Draft post Combine. So the 2024 NFL Scouting Combine is complete, and there's some players there that stood out. Now, I did a video earlier about how important the scouting combine is, and basically what you're doing is you're seeing a bunch of football players who might actually do track and field events very well. So that's basically what it is. But I went into it a little bit, and yeah, you can gain a lot out of this. It's gonna influence people. It's gonna influence me in a certain way as well. I understand, you know, all the applications of the events and stuff like that. I didn't write the numbers down from the scouting combine for a lot of these players. I looked at the results, and I have my favorite players from what I've seen on film and what I think would work for the Saints. And then I looked at the scouting combine results and realized that some of these players of mine that are favorites did very well in the scouting combine. So it just reiterates what I've already believed, and something that I may not have known, and now I know. So I'll talk about a few of those. We're not going to mention quarterback, nothing going on there. We're going to start with the running backs, and there were a couple of surprises. I'm going to mention a couple of them before highlighting my favorites. Guy named George Hollanai out of Boise State. He wasn't even on my radar. He did okay. Uh, a guy from Texas that backs up Jonathan Brooks by the name of Keelan Robinson. He ran a 4.42. Not bad. A guy from Monmouth named Jaden Sheridan. He had a 4.45, which is really fast. And yeah, a guy out of Georgia named Kendall Milton. You get your name on the list of all the better producing backs at the combine, and then maybe you end up on somebody's draft board. Overall, nothing too shocking that I could see out of the running back core, except that Kamani Vidal out of Troy did pretty good as well. I'm not a fan of his overall game. He could fit into the Saints scheme okay, but we'll have to just see with Vidal from Troy. But let me bring up the ones that I'm really high on, and we're going to start with Jalen Wright out of Tennessee, 5'11", 210. Yeah, he was on my short list in my top 5 or 6, and he had a great combine, and so now I've probably got Jalen Wright, securely in my top 5. I still think the best running back is Jonathan Brooks out of Texas. But Jalen Wright was pretty impressive at the combine. And 2 more guys that I've been high on that are in my top 5. Blake Corum out of Michigan, 5'8", 205. He had a very good combine. He had a really good college career. And Corum's going to be one of the first running backs taken off the board. I like what I see in Corum. I think he could be a good player for the Saints. Another guy that I really like is Marshawn Lloyd out of USC, 5'9", 210. He is quick. He is fast. He shows good vision. He's an all-around good player. And those 3 guys, Jalen Wright, Blake Corum, Marshawn Lloyd, they're at the top of the list along with Jonathan Brooks for me at running back. Now, as I said, At running back, I think we're good to go with just addressing it with rookie free agents or cheap veterans who are good in the outside zone scheme. Somebody that can fit into a Kubiak system. I think you can find guys that are plug and play in that system that won't cost you an arm and a leg. I don't think that spending a high draft pick on a running back is a good idea this year, and I don't think going and spend a lot in free agency for a running back is a good idea. But if Jalen Wright or Marshawn Lloyd or Blake Corum ends up falling to you, if the Saints acquire third-round picks and fourth-round picks in this upcoming draft, if somehow we can acquire middle-round picks, then Jalen Wright, Marshawn Lloyd, Blake Corum, one of those guys, I think would be a good pick in the third or fourth round. Right now, we don't have third or fourth round picks. Now, I'm going to mention three other guys, and these are guys that I think fall more into that possibility of the Saints drafting them because they're later round picks. We're going to start with the new guy on the block, Tyrone Tracy Jr. out of Purdue, who he was not on my radar at all, but he blew up at the combine. Very, very good. 5'11", 209. Not sure what kind of production he had in college. I'm going to have to look into this guy. But at the combine, he was a force to be reckoned with. And so now he's on my radar. I'm going to look more into him and figure out whether he fits into the scheme for the Saints or not. But he's got everybody's attention now. And two more guys I'm going to mention here, late round projections, but they did very well at the combine. So, first I'm going to start with Isaac Guerendo out of Louisville. Love that guy because, I mean, he's big, he's powerful, and he is fast. 6'1", 225. He ran the fastest combine for a running back this year, 4.33 speed. 4.33 speed at 6'1", 225. Watching his film is interesting because he didn't get a lot of playing time. He was a transfer to Louisville. He split time with Jawhar Jordan there at Louisville, and Guerendo would go in and, he'd be a spot player. He looked like a pretty good runner to me, and what I really liked about him, he's so big that he just bounces off of tacklers. I mean, people try to tackle him, and they just bounce off of him. And also, I noticed when he hits the hole, he gets to that 4.3 speed pretty quick. You can see on the film exactly how fast he is. Once he sees the hole and he hits it, yeah, he's gone. Like, he's beyond the second level. And he's so big, if somebody's there, he can just run him over. I like it. He's a specimen. So, even though I don't want to draft a running back, in my opinion, Isaac Guerendo now is a fourth-round projection, easy fourth-round projection. And if the Saints would move up to get him, it would probably rub me the wrong way, but I know he's a good player. And, it could have been a fifth or sixth round pick. I think now could possibly go in the third round. If he's there in the fourth round, it's a good pick. If he falls to the fifth round and the Saints take him with just one of their regular fifth round picks, well, then to me that's worth a draft pick. If you can get a guy that you're projecting to go in the third or fourth round, in the fourth or fifth round, you go ahead and do it. Yeah, that's my favorite guy right there out of the bunch, I think. When it's all said and done, I mean, I don't want Jonathan Brooks because you'll have to spend a first or second round pick to get him. But I'll take Guerendo with a fourth or fifth round pick. And another guy that's a low round projection is Dylan Lowe out of New Hampshire. Mentioned him before, 5'10", 207. Yeah, he's another guy that is he's going to be a good player. And he would be worth a late round draft pick. I thought he might have been a fifth or sixth round projection before, but now that he had a great combine, I'm bumping him into the fourth round, which means if he's there in the fifth round, he's worth the pick. All right, that's my breakdown of running backs. The next batch of players we're going to talk about is wide receivers. All of the top names seem to do pretty well. Guys like Devontae Walker and Xavier Legette, who I thought were dropping into that third round consideration. Both of them had decent combines, and so, they may hover to that beginning of the third round conversation into the second round again. Some of these players were hot and cold throughout their careers, and then you come to the combine and you prove that you're an athlete, and then maybe somebody would be willing to take a chance. I like the film on Devontae Walker and Xavier Legette, but they seem to be inconsistent, especially from the Senior Bowl practices. But they perform well at the combine, so, worth a consideration. Lots of big names that did lots of great things, like Xavier Worthy and Brian Thomas Jr., A.D. Mitchell. These guys all did pretty good. Some guys that did very good, even though they're still only third or fourth round projections, in my opinion, would be Jermaine Burton out of Alabama, Luke McCaffrey out of Rice, Jalen McMillan out of Washington, Malik Washington out of Virginia. Those guys did very well. Probably keep them around that late third, fourth round projection. Some surprises at the combine, in my opinion, would be Jalen Coker out of Holy Cross. Isaiah Williams, the smaller guy out of Illinois, he did pretty good. And a couple of guys I'd never really had my eye on. Bub Means out of Pittsburgh did very well. All right, let's talk about the guys that really impressed, though. The ones that I'm modifying here, and I'll just start with Rome Odunze, 6'3", 212 pounds. Rome, of course, is widely regarded as the third wide receiver in the class. He had a really good combine. I think he solidifies that number 3 overall wide receiver spot. At 6'3", 212 pounds, no one believes Rome Odunze. At this point, no one believes Rome Odunze is going to be there when we draft at number 14. But if he is, he impressed to the point where, he is worth the pick. So I don't expect Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr. to be there at 14. And I expect Rome Odunze to be drafted before 14 as well. Really, I thought the top wide receiver on the board when we pick at 14 would be Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU. But I would take Rome Odunze over Brian Thomas Jr., and it's just one of those things where if Rome is there, we draft him. That's what the combine told me. Yes, he is worth that 14th overall pick. Now, Brian Thomas Jr. is worth it too. But I think there's a little bit of separation between Rome and Brian. So either one at wide receiver at number 14, I won't complain with. I just think that Rome Odunze showed enough at the combine to solidify that number 3 spot. Now, whether he's going to be there or not, we'll see. All right, next on the list, Ricky Pearsall out of Florida. Wow, what a combine. I mean, he was great. 6'1", 190 pounds. I had Ricky Pearsall in that same class, a little lower than Ladd McConkey, but right around Roman Wilson and some other quick, fast guys, possession guys, perhaps project to be a slot and not really an outside guy. Well, Ricky's a little bigger than those other guys. He can play on the outside. Don't know if he will, but he was so impressive at the combine that I'm going to go ahead and put Pearsall ahead of Roman Wilson, who had a great Senior Bowl. I'm going to put him right there below Ladd McConkey. So when you start to get into the late first, second round wide receivers, Ricky Pearsall is a guy you're going to have to look for. Do we take him at pick 45? I don't know. I think somebody's going to take a chance on him before we pick at 45. I'll just say that he was impressive on film. The only question I really had was whether he could be a bigger outside receiver and not just be forced to be utilized in the slot. And I think Pearsall showed enough at the combine that, yeah, you can go ahead and take a chance on him. I don't want to spend the second round pick on him. I think he would still be a phenomenal third round pick. All of these wide receivers that are projected to be in the slot, with the exception of Ladd, I think might be a bit of a reach in the second round. Third round, you feel more comfortable with. But out of all of them, yeah, Ricky Pearsall, he's a guy that if we take in the second round, it won't break my heart too much. All right, another lower round guy I really like, Ryan Flournoy out of Southeast Missouri State. We talked about him in the wide receiver video. The small school guy who has all the intangibles, 6'2", 197 pounds. I really like Flournoy, especially now that he blew up at the combine. I mean, he shows that he is an athlete, a special kind of athlete. When you're stuck in a small school and you're going against, weaker competition, sometimes it may be hard to imagine what they can do on the next level. And that's when a good performance at the combine can get the spotlight on you. I always projected Flournoy as, at the earliest, a fourth round pick. And I was predicting that the Saints might move up, package a couple of fifths to move up into the fourth to grab somebody that they really like. And right now, Flournoy is one of those guys at wide receiver. The wide receiver video I did mentions dozens of them, so you can go back and watch that if you would like. But yeah, I like Flournoy. If he can make it to the fifth round, it would be a steal. And I'm going to mention one other wide receiver, Anthony Gold out of Oregon State. Now he's 5'8", 165 pounds, and that's just way too small for my liking. He was a beast at the combine, though. For that height of 5'8", he was jumping at the vertical, jumping in the broad jump. Guy is obviously a good athlete. And when you're a small guy, but you prove you've got the goods like that, then, yeah, to me, he was almost undraftable. And now, 5th round, 6th round, 7th round, yeah, you go ahead. Somebody may take a chance on him way earlier because of that impressive scouting combine. Those are the wide receivers that I'm going to mention. Now let's take a look at tight end. There were a couple of huge standouts. Delvin Culp out of Washington did okay. Jaheim Bell did fine on a few, as well as Tanner McLaughlin out of Arizona, Jaheim Bell out of Florida State, Cade Stover out of Ohio State. These guys all did okay. Jared Wiley out of TCU showed up and did pretty good. And Tip Reiman out of Illinois, who in my opinion was a 6th or 7th round pick, he did very well at the combine. So Tip Reiman may be a tight end to keep your eye on in the 4th round, 5th round. Huge guy, 6'7", just massive guy. I think he weighs 260 pounds. And to be as athletic and to perform as well as he did at the combine, yeah, Ryman's a guy to keep your eye out on. But the two that I'm going to highlight here are the studs. Theo Johnson out of Penn State, 6'6", 264 pounds. People are talking about him being possibly the second best tight end in the class. He's definitely in the top 5. And at 6'6", 264, for him to perform as well as he did at the combine, he did better than just about everybody at every skill that they tried. It impressed me. Now, I've always had my eye on Johnson. With the Saints' new offense, as I projected in my head, I imagine a tight end with special skills, somebody that can move and receive very well. So guys like Jaheim Bell interest me quite a bit, and Jatavian Sanders, because they are kind of special players at tight end. But our offense, if I'm projecting it correctly, we're going to have special players everywhere. We're going to need running backs that can do things. We're going to need somebody lining up as a fullback and a tight end that can do all kinds of things. And so there are going to be spots for X factor type guys on our roster. And if we don't have a special X factor type guy, then tight end would be a good place to put a guy like Jaheim Bell or Jatavian Sanders. But if we have X factors running around doing all kinds of things, it's one thing we don't have on our team is a complete tight end. And Theo Johnson would be that complete tight end. Now, I'm afraid you're going to have to grab him in the second round if you want a chance at getting him. Just like I said, the Saints have to pick up middle round picks. We have to get third and fourth round picks in this draft. It's too much meat on the bone there. A guy like Theo Johnson would be a great third round pick, and we don't have a third round pick. I think he'd be a reach at the second round. But what are you going to do if you're the Saints and you want a tight end? You going to grab Brock Bowers in the 14th overall pick, or are you going to grab somebody else? Come on, Nico, just get over here. What? My cat loves to be on everything. Mickey. Look at this beautiful face. You can't climb on my stuff, baby. Here, lay on that. He's very active today. Miko's usually active at night. No, I don't want you on here, baby. Okay. The other big tight end I'm going to mention that I'm very excited about is Ben Sinnott. It looks like Sinnott to me. Ben Sinnott out of Kansas State. 6'4", 250 pounds. I've had my eye on him all year, all off season, and he did well at the combine. So, in my opinion, the Saints need a complete tight end, and these are the two best out of the bunch, in my opinion. Theo Johnson, Ben Sinnott. You get either one of those guys in the third round or fourth round, and you're very happy. So the Saints would have to acquire those picks first before we could actually draft these players. But those are the tight ends that I'm focusing on. I did a video a couple of weeks ago about the best draft prospects for the Saints, where I filled out the entire offense and entire defense with rookies coming out in the draft. And I'm going to do another video like that very soon. And I'm going to upgrade my position rankings. And Theo Johnson and Ben Sinnott have done enough at the combine to thrust them to the top of my list. Now, like I said, if we get an X factor on this team to do special things, it could very well be a wide receiver, a running back, a tight end, somebody who can line up in different positions and make things happen for us. Pretty important to me. But if you do that with wide receiver or running back, or if you have a tight end like Taysom Hill or Juwan Johnson who already has special skills, then it's pretty important to get a complete tight end in the fray. So, now we're going to go over to the defensive side of the ball and talk about some combine standouts on the defensive side. Starting with defensive end, and I know people say edge rusher, that defensive end or linebacker, please. Okay, is he an edge rusher? Oh, okay. What position does he play on first down? Does he play defensive end or does he play linebacker? That's what I need to know. I'm tired of people saying edge rusher. We need edge rusher. You need a pass rusher. That's what you mean, a pass rusher. A pass rusher that comes off the edge? Well, is that going to be a defensive end or a linebacker? Or is it going to be a tweener like Vaughn, who's going to play linebacker and then get on the edge on third down, which the Saints never, ever did before. except for a couple of games last year. So I don't like edge rusher. It doesn't make sense to me. If you're a linebacker and you can blitz the quarterback, hopefully you're good enough to blitz from anywhere on the field. Edge rusher, whatever. Defensive end, we're going to talk about that first. A couple of guys did pretty good. Cedric Johnson, who was a 6th-round projection out of Ole Miss, I had him mentioned as a big body potential for the Saints late in the draft. He did okay at the combine. Jalix Hunt out of Houston Christian showed up as well. And Xavier Thomas out of Clemson, who I thought projected to be a pretty good outside linebacker / defensive end project. He did pretty good at the combine, but those aren't the ones I'm going to highlight. I'm going to highlight, at first, we're going to start with Jared Verse. All right, Jared Verse. That is one of the highly touted edge rushers in this class. Well, he weighs in at the combine at 6'4", 254 pounds. Now, I would rather him be 260, 265. I think he can get up to 265. I think he played at 260. I think he lost weight for the combine. He did very well at the combine. He plays with a ton of strength. He had the most bench reps out of all of the defensive ends in the draft coming out. So he showed that strength. He shows it on the field a lot too. I don't like that weight of 254. He needs to be at least 265. And I think he can get back up there, no problem. So as far as your smaller edge rusher at defensive end, I say Jared Verse is the best way to go. He's about the same size as Laiatu Latu. I think he may have been a touch bigger. I think they're both at the same weight right now at 250-something. Latu has a chance to bulk up and be a little better. Latu's got all the moves, the pass rush moves, but Verse has the strength, and that's what I'm looking for. I would love a guy that can rush the passer from defensive end, but I want a guy that can stop the run first. Can he play every down at defensive end? Jared Verse probably can. Get him up to 265, 270, and he definitely can. Another guy, defensive end, that can hold up very well is, of course, Darius Robinson out of Missouri, 6'5", 285 pounds. That's what he weighed at the combine. That is lighter than he played at, but he was playing in the middle of the defensive line for most of his career and bounced out to the outside for the last year. So he lost a touch of weight, and 285 is beautiful. This guy can definitely play defensive line on the edge of the line. Hold on one second. All right, sorry, the zoo. I had to take care of the zoo. So, yeah, Jared Verse, pretty good. If I had my choice between Dallas Turner, Laiatu Latu, or Jared Verse, I would obviously pick Jared Verse. I think he's the guy that's going to play defensive end for us. And then Darius Robinson, of course, is going to play defensive end for us and could probably rush the passer on third down from defensive end. I like that. Another guy on the smaller size, Chop Robinson out of Penn State. You know, he was always a late first, second round projection. A lot of people saw him falling into the second round pretty soundly. 6'4", 254 pounds. Measures in the exact same size as Jared Verse. And Chop had a really good combine. So he's on my short list of defensive ends that may be there, you know, for us. The way I look at it is Dallas Turner won't be there at 14. Laiatu Latu, Jared Verse, one of them may be there. Both of them, all three of them may be gone. And Chop Robinson's that's way too early at 14. And I don't think Chop will make it to pick 45 in round 2, but he showed a lot at the combine. And I had Robinson as one of those tweeners where I'm not sure if he can bulk up enough to play the end or not, or if he can be fluid enough to play linebacker. But I like what he did at the combine, and I would take a chance on him. I wouldn't pick him till the second round, but yeah, I think he would be a pretty active player as a second round pick. And in two other edge rushers, I'm going to mention Marshawn Nealon out of Western Michigan, 6'3", 275 pounds, big guy to play on the defensive line. Can probably play all three downs because he can rush the passer pretty good. He showed at the Senior Bowl that he could be effective as a rusher against bigger competition, stiffer competition, and then the scouting combine he did very well. So I like Nealon. I like Nealon as a third rounder or a fourth rounder. Once again, the Saints don't have third or fourth round picks. And the last little guy I'm going to mention is Muhammad Kamara. I mentioned him before as one of my favorites to get in the middle rounds as an edge rusher. 6'1", 248 pounds. He can probably bulk up another 10, 15 pounds. If he can bulk up 15 pounds, maybe he can make it on the line for more than just pass rushing situations. But I don't see Kamara going any higher than the third round. So you get Kamara in the fourth round, and I think you're doing pretty good. Those are my defensive ends that I like post-combine. And now we're going to talk about defensive tackles, where, believe it or not, you can also get a pass rusher, a guy that's not undersized. So a lot of players did well. The big names, Byron Murphy did pretty good. Mekhi Wingo out of LSU did pretty good. Mason Smith out of LSU did well as well. And Gabe Hall out of Baylor was pretty good. A guy named Logan Lee out of Iowa showed up at the top of these lists. So did Tyler Davis out of Clemson. I'm not completely sold on Davis's tape. So we'll start with Braden Fisk out of Florida State. Now, I like Braden Fisk, and I watched his film, and I liked his film. I didn't like that it felt like he could get a lot of penetration but didn't finish a lot of the time. And he was a stud at the combine. So I would take Fisk with a third-round pick, but I have a feeling he'll get taken in the second round. I wouldn't want the Saints to reach for him that early. Move back into the fourth round to grab him, I can understand that. Another guy that I like that's rising up the boards is Dwayne Carter out of Duke. I've always liked him. I've liked his film. And Dwayne Carter, 6'3", 305. He's probably better suited as a 3 tech. And we've already got a first-round pick in Brian Bresee as a 3 tech. So Dwayne Carter's probably too good of a player to pass up in the fourth round at this point. Two guys that I really like that I think can play either defensive tackle position because they're good against the run. I'll go start first with Chris Jenkins out of Michigan. I've always liked him. 6'3", 299 pounds. So he's right at 300 pounds. It's not the nose tackle type, 5 tech, whatever you want to call it. But he's good against the run. And I think that would be a great spot for Jenkins. You put him right next to Brian Bresee. And you have him play all 3 downs on the defensive line because Jenkins is active enough to get after the passer. But, of course, what I like the most about him is he's good against the run. Another guy that I really like in the middle of the defensive line is Rook Ororahor. However you want to say it. The other defensive tackle out of Clemson. He had a decent combine as well. 6'4", 294 pounds. I always comp Jenkins and Orhorhoro to a guy like the one the Saints just let go. David Onyemata. God, David Onyemata, a guy that was pretty good for us against the run, pretty good against the pass. He was a guy that was able to play that 5 tech in the defensive line and was able to play all 3 downs. And yeah, I think that Chris Jenkins and Rook both are David Onyemata types. I think that's something we really need in the middle of the defensive line. A guy like Colin Saunders is just too big to get after the passer, and we were porous against the run this past year. So I got my eye on Jenkins and Orhorhoro. I kind of like those guys better than Braden Fisk. Braden Fisk is going to get taken early, and let somebody else take him. And the last guy I'm going to mention is Marcus Harris out of Auburn, 6'2", 282. He's pretty small for a defensive tackle, but he grades so good against the run, and that's his thing. So, yeah, I would grab Marcus Harris in the 6th round and not even think twice about it. His ability to play the run so well already. Yeah, I think you might have a good player there with a little coaching up. That's my defensive tackles, defensive linemen all together. And last, we're going to talk about the secondary. I guess we could be in the market for an outside cornerback if we decide to trade Marshawn Lattimore. We could be in the market for an outside cornerback if we don't re-sign Isaac Yiadom. And if we let Yiadom go in free agency and we trade Marshawn Lattimore, then yeah, we're really going to need outside cornerback help. But I haven't focused on outside cornerback a lot. I'm more focused on guys that can play the nickel because that's where we're sorely missing. I mean, even if everything else goes to waste on the outside, we still have Paulson Adebo and Alontae Taylor. Okay, we still have a couple of starters, so it's the nickelback that I'm worried about. Nobody can play nickelback on our team right now. We re-sign Ugo Amadi, that would be great. But as far as the cornerbacks go in the combine, Nehemiah Pritchard out of Auburn has shown up. Miles Harden out of South Dakota showed up, did pretty good. Andrew Phillips out of Kentucky. Kyrie Jackson out of Oregon. DeCameron Richardson out of Mississippi State. All of these guys were at the top of the list on the scouting combine skills. But 3 I'm going to highlight here, starting with Mike Sainristil out of Michigan, 5'9", 182. He was pretty impressive at the combine for as small as he is. When a guy that small can do a good vert and good broad and, can get 18 reps, he was somewhere between 13, 14, and 18 reps. I mean, this guy's going to be a great nickelback. Perfect 3rd-round pick for the Saints if we had 3rd-round picks. A guy that's probably going to get drafted a little earlier than that, Kamari Lassiter out of Georgia. Some people project him as a safety. He's coming out as a cornerback, 6 foot, 184. So he's pretty light for a cornerback in the Saints' eyes. But I think he projects to be a pretty good box player, in my opinion. So that's somebody to keep an eye out on who did very well at the combine that could fit the Saints' needs. And then lastly, I'm going to mention Max Melton, cornerback out of Rutgers, 5'11", 187. Once again, all 3 of these guys, Sainristil, Lassiter, Melton, all of them in the 185 range. As far as weight goes, none of them are over 6 foot. So as far as the Saints go, they're pretty small, but nickelback is a position we need to fix. Max Melton projects to be a safety by some and projects to be a very good nickelback either way, and that's something we need. Hey, Riley, Rye, rye, rye. Stop that. Come here. So Lassiter, Sainer still, Max Melton, cornerbacks who can project to nickelback. Pretty good stuff. And then as far as safety goes, well, I'm going to mention a couple of guys. Starting with my main man, Cole Bishop out of Utah. 6'2", 205 pounds. Yeah, when this whole process started, people thought maybe 5th round, maybe 4th round, and now he's one of the top performers at the combine. Bishop might go in the 3rd round. I don't even think he would be much of a reach. That's my little Tully butt right there. That's Tully. He's not going to get any camera time. He's very shy, but he's a sweetheart. I love Cole Bishop. I think grabbing him in the 3rd round is a great pick. We don't have a 3rd round pick or a 4th round pick. I think Cole Bishop's one of those special players. Could cover the tight end, play in the box, and that's the kind of safety I'm wanting for the Saints right now. And 2 other guys that really surprised me, besides Jalen Simpson out of Auburn, who was pretty good, and Evan Williams out of Oregon, who did very well at the combine. I'm going to highlight Dominique Hampton out of Washington. 6'2", 215. That is perfect size for the Saints at safety. Don't know how he projects in the box, but we need youth at safety. We need depth at safety. And Dominique Hampton was a 5th round projection. Now that he's excelled at the scouting combine, he would probably be a steal in the 5th round for the Saints. So I'm going to highlight him. And I'm going to highlight one other player out of Texas Tech, Tyler Owens, 6'2", 216, perfect size for the Saints. Not sure how he projects in the box as a safety, but he is the size the Saints like. He is a guy that was not on my radar before, and he's a guy that performed well at the combine. So I've got my eye on Dominique Hampton and Tyler Owens for safety, because they project, as far as size goes, to be perfect prototype safeties for the Saints. And because they had great combines, they could go as early as the 4th round. So, well, there you go. That's my breakdown of my favorite players coming out of the scouting combine. I hope you guys appreciate this. I didn't have all of the combine numbers to wow you with. They were at the top of the list of almost all of the skills that they were supposed to do at the combine. And wanted to get you guys one of these out before the draft. Subscribe to Rosenfield 10 for more videos like this. I will be doing another complete offense and defensive roster with all rookies, and I'll have that ready for you before the draft. The draft is about a month away now. And stay subscribed so you'll get more videos about the Saints, any kind of news that pops up. I work full-time, but I'm going to try to get you 2 videos a week. I'm Joe, and until the next one, I'll talk to you later.